This is some very peculiar news to report because I would have never thought I would ever see this happening, but if you guys pay attention, it kind of makes sense why the Baltimore Ravens would go in this direction, and I'm going to try to give you guys the full story. Now, before we get to the content, guys, if you watch my content on a consistent basis, please smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, especially because a lot of my documentaries tend to get demonetized, so my videos may not show up for you guys in the YouTube algorithm. A like really goes a long way in supporting the channel. If you do feel like this is a channel that you'd enjoy consistently, make sure to subscribe and turn on my notifications. On top of that, Madden 21 is coming out in about 8 days, so I'm definitely going to be streaming that a lot on my Twitch account. It's twitch.tv/FlightMike. And if you were to ever want to tweet about me or tweet me some info that you think I should report on, you could find my Twitter and other social medias in the description down below. Now that we got all of that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Guys, I can't believe this because after Antonio Brown was being mulled over by the Baltimore Ravens and the Seattle Seahawks, originally the Ravens said that they were kind of fascinated at the idea of bringing in the former Pro Bowl standout wide receiver, and then they kind of backpedaled a little bit, saying that they were fairly unsure about signing Antonio Brown. After that, Lamar Jackson started advocating for Antonio Brown a little bit more, especially because Antonio Brown is the cousin of Marquise Hollywood Brown, so it would have made a nice story to see them team up on Baltimore. But today we got some more information about why the Baltimore Ravens are completely closing the door on Antonio Brown, and if you think about it, it kind of makes sense, but at the same time it doesn't make sense. Originally, there was a glimmer of hope when head coach John Harbaugh told the reporters that he's willing to look at any and every player, and that Antonio Brown is no exception. The irony of this is Brown actually is an exception because he had troubling off-the-field issues, and the Ravens have a history with players that are involved with potential domestic violence disputes, a la Ray Rice. So because of the Ray Rice situation that happened in the past, it's very hard to see the Baltimore Ravens going in the direction of Antonio Brown. Now, when I heard this initially, I thought of two things. One, it's very unfair to automatically assume that Antonio Brown was involved in anything domestic just because he was accused of something domestic. Ray Rice, we saw actual video evidence of a horrific domestic violence dispute. In Antonio Brown's case, and I'm not saying that he didn't do anything wrong, for all you know, he did something wrong. The only thing that we received in this instance is we saw a bunch of fairly aggressive text messages on behalf of Antonio Brown towards the woman, and of course you have the female accusation. You don't have actual video footage of a woman getting assaulted like in the Ray Rice situation. With that being said, I understand that if you're an organization like the Baltimore Ravens, you're up and coming, the risk reward for Antonio Brown just isn't there. Your offense was the top offense in the league last year. You do need a wide receiver, but of course Antonio Brown is a ticking time bomb. And of course there's potential for greatness over here, but by just improving your offense even marginally in return for getting a player that could completely disrupt your locker room, I just don't think it's very much worth it. And I guess I could understand why the Baltimore Ravens would say what they have said. But here's what's even more interesting, because now that the Baltimore Ravens have officially ruled out Antonio Brown as a potential wide receiver that they would sign, they are now looking into working out former Dallas Cowboys Pro Bowl wide receiver Dez Bryant. And what's fascinating about this is Dez Bryant hasn't played in a game since December of 2017, and he's had a very bumpy 2.5 years, or I think it's 3 years since the Dallas Cowboys have officially released him. He was released in March of 2017. After he was released in March of 2017, he attempted to make a comeback with the New Orleans Saints, and it seemed to look really good for him until he ruptured his Achilles with the New Orleans Saints in one of his first practices. What my initial thought is, on paper, this doesn't make a lot of sense. You know, you have Antonio Brown, who's kind of a head case and has had a ton of off the field issues, and you're comparing him with Dez Bryant, who is just a head case. I don't think Dez has had a lot of off the field issues. Of course, he has issues with his own family, but you can't really judge a man. If you know Dez Bryant's story, you'd understand why he is the way he is. If there isn't any good videos on Dez Bryant's story and his upbringing, I'll happily make one. Let me know in the comment section down below if that's something you guys would be interested in. Dez does have his own off the field issues. He is a little bit of a head case. He could be a locker room cancer, but as I was listening to a couple of podcasts and morning shows today, there was one comparison that I really actually enjoyed, and I believe it was Skip and Shannon that made the comparison of Dez Bryant being like the Carmelo Anthony of the NFL in multiple aspects. One, he does have the respect of many players. Players want to play with Dez Bryant. Patrick Mahomes worked out with him. Dak Prescott still was working out with him. Zeke was still working out with him this past summer. People want to see Dez Bryant succeed. Everyone in the NFL wants to see Dez Bryant succeed. In that sense, he has the same respect as Carmelo Anthony. However, in addition, he has another thing in common with Carmelo that just blew my mind. The fact that he is no longer an all-pro or a Pro Bowl wide receiver. He does have this urge that he wants to show everybody that he has something left in the tank, but he needs to understand that if the Baltimore Ravens sign him, it would be more to be a role player and a veteran presence in the locker room, more to be a role model for the young Marquise Hollywood Brown, and to be a vocal leader in the locker room alongside the very vocal Mark Ingram. He's going to have to understand that he's not going to be getting those 8-target or 9-target games anymore. Of course, you never know in Greg Roman's offense, but if there's one player I would like to compare Dez Bryant to in a Greg Roman system, is if you go back to the 2012 San Francisco 49ers, whose offensive coordinator was once again Greg Roman, who had a mobile quarterback very similar to the one that he has now in Colin Kaepernick as opposed to Lamar Jackson right now. And of course, I'm not saying in terms of talent, but in terms of play style. There was one Hall of Fame wide receiver on the team that was getting like 3 to 4 targets a game, and that was Randy Moss. Randy Moss was on that San Francisco 49ers team, and a lot of people didn't even realize it because he didn't look like Randy Moss. He wasn't doing Randy Moss things. As a matter of fact, during those years, the most targeted wide receiver on those 49ers teams was Michael Crabtree, then Vernon Davis, then Mario Manningham, and then Randy Moss. To give you an idea, Michael Crabtree was targeted 127 times throughout the entire NFL season, whereas Randy Moss was just targeted 50 times. To give you an idea of how bad that was, during his years with the Oakland Raiders, which were considered to be down years for Randy Moss, he was targeted 123 times. His lowest was 50 and his highest was 185. What I'm trying to say is, this is the role you could expect Dez Bryant to be in. He's not going to be coming out and just completely obliterating other press coverage cornerbacks in one-on-one, although I would love to see a matchup with Jalen Ramsey and for them to jaw off at each other. If he does get the job with the Baltimore Ravens, he's going to have a very minuscule role, and honestly, at this point of his career, he should be happy with it because this is the best chance he has at a Super Bowl. Let me know what you guys think about this info, guys, and if there's any other news that you want us to cover today, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn on my notifications if you guys enjoyed the content. I'm your boy Microphone. I'm dropping the mic until our next upload.